Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to knit a pumpkin applique. These appliques are really easy, they're really quick. All we're doing is using the knit stitch, so they're not overly complicated. Our increases are just a yarn over, so again, very basic, perfect for beginners who want to create a little something for the fall season. This pumpkin was made with 4-weight acrylic yarn. I also used a pair of 5mm knitting needles. However, I want to show you what I did with a thicker weight yarn and a larger knitting needle. So this one is quite a bit bigger. I also used sort of a variegated, so you can really play with different yarns in different colors in this project. This one is very standard. This is what I will be showing you in the tutorial. Your basic orange pumpkin green stem. This one was a 5 or 6 weight yarn. It was really thick. I also used these large knitting needles. These are a size 11 knitting needle, and I created a much larger pumpkin with them. This one I also just did a crochet stem, just trying to play with the pattern. However, for this tutorial, since I wanted it to be completely a knitted pattern and tutorial, this stem is made knitting. So there's no crochet in this video. So like I said, for this project, you can pick any yarn that you want and any corresponding knitting needle size, whatever you have available for this project. If you use a larger weight and needle size, you'll wind up with a much larger pumpkin. If you use the 4-weight and a 5mm knitting needle, you'll wind up with something a little bit smaller. And of course you can size this way down. You'll also need scissors and a yarn needle, of course, to weave in all of those fun ends. Once you have your yarn and your knitting needles, we can get started. To start our pumpkin, we're going to cast on 10 stitches, leaving just a little bit of a tail, approximately 9-10 inches long. Go ahead and cast on 10 stitches. Once you have 10 stitches, we can go ahead, pick up our other needle. The first row, we are just going to knit every stitch all the way across. There's no increase or decrease on this row. So row 1 is just a knit every stitch. Get my tail out of the way. You go in from the back, wrap the yarn, and knit that stitch off. And you do this all the way down. Row 2 is an increase row, and we're going to increase by 1 stitch on each side. To do that, we're going to just do a very simple increase, which is a yarn over. So we're going to go ahead and knit that first stitch. And now we want to increase 1, so we're going to yarn over, and that creates an extra stitch, and then knit the next stitch right away. And now we've got 3 loops on our needle. We're going to knit the next 7 stitches, so when we have 1 stitch left on our left-handed needle, we will go ahead and increase on that side. I have 1 stitch left. I'm going to yarn over again on that right-handed needle and knit that very last stitch. And we have increased. So now instead of 10 loops on our needle, we should have 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 3 is just knitting every stitch across. no increase. So just knit every stitch all the way across and you'll still have 12 stitches. Row 5 is an increase row, and we're going to do the same thing that we did on row 3. So we're going to work a knit stitch on this first stitch, yarn over, knit the next one, and knit all the way down until we have just the one loop on our left-handed needle, and we'll yarn over and knit that last one to create our increase on that side. I'm going to go ahead and yarn over and knit that last stitch. I should have 14 total loops on my needle now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. The next row is just a knit row. We're just going to knit every stitch all the way across. Row 7 is our last increase row. So we're going to do the same thing that we did on row 3 and row 5. We're going to knit that first stitch, yarn over, knit the next, and we're going to knit all the way down until we have one stitch left on our left-handed needle. I've got one stitch left. I'm going to yarn over and knit that last stitch. And we should now have 16 total stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. The next row is just a knit row all the way across. The next 14 rows are exactly the same. We are just going to knit back and forth for 14 rows. So I'm going to go ahead and work my 14 rows just working the knit stitch. So knitting every stitch all the way across. I have worked my 14 rows knitting back and forth. You can see it's kind of shaping into a pumpkin. We're going to shape the top now. So this next row is a decrease row. In order to decrease, we want to knit the first 2 stitches together. So instead of going through this first stitch here, we want to actually go through the second one as if to knit and that first one. So you're actually going through both of those stitches. We can then wrap our yarn and knit like that. And now we've taken 2 stitches off and we have 1 on our right hand needle. So we have decreased by 1. We're going to knit all the way across until we get to the last 2 stitches, and we will decrease on that end as well. I have 2 stitches left on my left hand needle. I'm going to do the same thing, going in on that very last stitch and going through both of those stitches. I can then yarn over to knit, and now I have decreased 1 on each side. The next row is just a knit all the way across. We're not going to be decreasing on this row. We're just going to knit all the way across. Turn, switch your needles. The next row is another decrease. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to knit the first 2 stitches together. And we're going to knit every stitch until the last 2, and we'll knit the last 2 together. 2 stitches left. I'm going to go through that first one and second one. So I've gone through both stitches. and I'm going to knit to create 1, and I've decreased again. We have 12 stitches on our needle. The next row is just a knit all the way across, so just knit every stitch all the way across. We've got one more decrease row to do. So again, this next row we're going to knit the first 2 together. Knit the stitches until you get to the last 2, and then knit the last 2 together. And now we are back to our 10 stitches on our needle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So there is our little pumpkin. We're going to go ahead and cast off all 10 stitches at this point. So I'm going to knit that first stitch and the second stitch. And then I'm going to put my left hand needle underneath that first stitch that we knit, lift it up a little bit, bring it over that second stitch and off your needle. Knit the next and do the same thing. Lift that first loop, that first stitch, up and over and off your needle. So just keep doing this all the way down. We're going to cast off all of our stitches. Once you've done that, you should have this one lone stitch on your needle. You can fasten off and then just pull up on your yarn and then weave in your ends. And then we'll work on the stem. So here is my little pumpkin shape. Here is the last row where we just cast it off. I am going to pick up and knit 3 stitches across the top here. So sometimes those little stitches will kind of bump out. I'm just going to put my needle in a couple of these stitches here, like this. Slide them over, grab my right-handed needle, and I'm going to start knitting with my stem color. So I've got my green here. So I'm going to go ahead and knit across. Now when you're changing colors, I like to hold the tail end of my new color, wrap it around the needle, and then knit it off just like that. You've just got to be a little careful because it's going to be loose until you start working with it a little bit more. So that end tail is going to be loose. And now we've changed color. So I'm going to turn, I'm going to pull on that end tail just a little bit. I'm going to knit. So we're going to knit again. So knit those 3 stitches across, and just be careful when you get to this last one where you changed colors, because it's going to want to pull up on you since we haven't woven in that end. So I'm just going to take that out and pull that, make sure it's nice and tight. Going to knit across. I'm going to knit across 2 more rows. So it should be a total of 5 rows knit in this green stem color. You should have something that looks a little bit like this. So I've got my 5 rows. I'm going to knit the first one on this next row, and then I'm going to knit 2 together on the next stitch. So now we're down to 2 stitches. Going to knit those 2 stitches. So knit the first, knit the second, and you can make your stem as tall as you want. So if you wanted to knit those 3 stitches that we had initially for a much taller length, feel free. It doesn't change the pattern really. You can decrease whenever you want. I'm going to knit 1 more row with those 2 stitches. And I'm going to knit these 2 stitches together. So you can really decrease whenever you want on this pattern. It just depends on how tall you want your stem. I'm going to fasten off. I'm going to cut my yarn, leaving just a little bit of a tail to weave in. Pull that up, pull it tight. You can weave in these 2 green ends, and then we'll have a little knitted pumpkin applique. Our little knitted pumpkin. So this pumpkin is just the garter stitch, which makes it really simple. We've got a simple little stem at the top. Like I said earlier, you can go ahead and create a longer stem just by knitting back and forth a few more rows before you start to decrease to create that little top part of your stem. These are really cute. They make great appliques for garlands. They make great appliques to put on other fabrics. They're great as coasters. So there's just a lot of fun fall uses for these little pumpkins. I hope you enjoy this tutorial. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time, happy knitting. Bye.